Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you might be on this planet of ours. Welcome to Emergency Management Associates, coming to you from the way out east, Area Command, 392 miles west of Kitty Hawk Beach, North Carolina. We want to welcome everybody here to our program tonight. Please hang on to your shoes and your socks. We're going to start singing the national anthem in just a minute, but prior to that, would you all please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance? Thank you very much.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Now would you make welcome, straight from Washington, D.C., the United States Army Corps Quartet.
Yeah.
Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight o'er the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rocket's red glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the
Oh yeah! Come on, folks, let them know it.
Let them know it, everybody. Let them know it. This is the United States Army Barbershop Quartet, bringing us the national anthem from the Barbershop Quartet Convention in 2015. The Quartet Convention held in 2015 had the hosts who gave us the Pledge of Allegiance, and we thank them for it. We want to thank all of our military members, wherever they might be, here and around the globe. God bless them and thank them for their service, and also our allies, wherever they might be, and their military members. God bless all of you. May you all return home to your families in safety when your tours of duty end. God bless you and thank you for your service. Folks, we have a lot to talk about tonight. The first thing I'm going to talk about is one of the nation's top stories today. One of the nation's top stories today. It is Mr. T. Mr. T. There we go. Today, Mr. T appeared in a New York courtroom in front of District Attorney Bragg and a judge, I don't remember the guy's name, the judge's name right off the top of my head, but it's a judge that does not like Mr. T, nor does his wife and the family. These people hate the man, and yet this is the man who's going to be deciding Mr. T's fate over the coming year. Mr. T appeared at approximately 2:15 this afternoon. The judge did not give a gag order to Mr. T, but the one thing the judge did say, he's not to be seen or to do anything that may be interpreted as inciting violence on social media. This after district attorney, who is a prosecutor of this case, showed social media posts of Mr. T talking about protests. Mr. T is not allowed to use the word protest. Okay? It's very interesting that this would happen in April, because Mr. T does not have another hearing until December 4th. December 4th. It's going to be a hearing. It's not even going to be a trial. It's going to be a hearing. Okay? And Mr. T is supposed to appear in person, not just represented by attorneys. Mr. T can go on and run for president, but he's not to use the word protest, and he's supposed to appear again on December 4th. Almost a year. Not quite, 8 months. It's very interesting that this thing would be put off again for 8 months, and then when is the trial supposed to begin? Okay? Now, in doing what they did today, Mr. T's attorneys put out a not guilty plea. Put out a not guilty plea. And they unsealed the indictment. 34 counts in court. Okay? A 34-count indictment, all coming together around Stormy Daniels. Stormy Daniels has denied an affair. Stormy Daniels and her attorney have denied getting paid, as Mr. Cohen, Trump's former attorney, said they had, that Attorney Cohen, gave Stormy Daniels a check, which Stormy Daniels said did not happen. But this frickin' idiot, Mr. Bragg, wants to tell us that this is a felony charge. He's trying to make all these misdemeanors come together into a big, huge felony charge, 34-count felony charge against him. Really? I don't think it's going to work. Mr. T pleaded not guilty to all 34 counts in the indictment as it was unsealed. Mr. Bragg is going to face an uphill battle. The federal government did not want to do this. The district attorney didn't want to do it at first before Bragg took over. Then what happened? Bragg took over, and one of his campaign promises was to go after Mr. T. And that's what happened. This is all political. It's completely political. There's nothing decent about this at all. Not one thing. He didn't do anything wrong. Michael McKinney's here in the chat, says he didn't do anything wrong. No, he did not. But Mr. Bragg wants to make it out as some big deal. And the judge hates Mr. T. Bragg hates Mr. T. The judge's entire family hate Mr. T. Half of New York hates Mr. T. It's interesting how that would happen. Today, prior to Mr. T coming out of the tower that he was living in, that he stayed last night in, there was a good deal of ruckus downstairs outside. There were protests going on. people yelling. Antifa was there. For the most part, it was Antifa that was showing up causing problems this morning. I saw it. Okay? Yes, there was a good sizable number of pro Mr. T people. A huge number. Even Marjorie Taylor Greene, a congresswoman, showed up and led the protest. Marjorie Taylor Greene said that Mr. T was innocent of all charges. And I say the same thing. Mr. T is innocent of all charges. That's the long and the short of the whole thing. Okay? But again, we're not going to hear anything about this until at least December 4th. A lot of things are going to come out between now and then. I believe that. But Mr. Bragg has until December 4th to turn this off. Mr. T and his attorneys and the entire criminal justice system can go after Mr. Bragg meantime. And I have a feeling they're planning on it. At least I would hope so. Mr. T can go on and run for president. Now, prior to November 4th this year, prior to that time, there's going to be held a lot of nomination people that may or may not run against Mr. T or anybody on the Democrat Communist side as well. A lot of people are going to come out. Sometime next summer, there's going to be a nominating convention both for the Republicans and the Democrats. I have a feeling Mr. T is going to head out at all, go up and above everybody. He's popular. He's more popular than any other candidate, including Biden right now. Joey is garbage. Garbage. 43% popularity rating. Mr. T, 47%. But Mr. T has a percentage above everybody. Nobody can touch him. Over the past 36 hours, Mr. T raised another $1.5 million to go towards his campaign. That's how popular that man is. It's incredible. So anyway, the indictment was read out, 34 counts, felony counts against Mr. Trump, and I don't believe any of it. It's trash. Everything that I heard was trash. Now, there's a couple other people that come into this, okay? There's another judge who is on Fox News. She has come out completely in support of Mr. T. I was going to, here it is. Judge Janine says the indictment is garbage. Hold on just a second.
In American history, former President Donald Trump on his way back to Florida after surrendering himself at a Manhattan courthouse. He was arrested, fingerprinted, and pled not guilty to 34 felony counts of falsifying business records. We're expecting to hear from President Trump later tonight. Brian Yennis is outside the courthouse in Lower Manhattan to break down the charges. Brian.
Jesse, good evening. That's right. So former President Trump charged with 34 felony counts of falsifying business records here in the state of New York. Just moments ago, well, about a couple hours ago, the District Attorney of Manhattan, Alvin Bragg, laid out his case. Listen.
Donald Trump was arraigned on a New York Supreme Court indictment returned by a Manhattan grand jury on 34 felony counts of falsifying business records in the first degree. Under New York state law, it is a felony to falsify business records with intent to defraud and an intent to conceal another crime. That is exactly what this case is about.
So DA Bragg is charging former President Trump with 34 felony counts. That's a felony count for every single falsified business record that they have in evidence, apparently. Now, as he mentioned, in New York, in order to be found guilty of a felony count or be charged with a felony count, you have to be found to have been trying to hide or a second crime. So in this case, what Bragg is alleging is that essentially former President Trump falsified business records in furtherance of his 2016 presidential election, which is a violation of New York State election law, because under New York State election law, you can't be promoting a candidate or your candidacy under unlawful means. That's as best as we have, as we see it based on his press conference, in terms of understanding the charges. Now, in terms of what happened inside the courtroom, the former president did not say a word. He sat stoically. Our courtroom producer, Jake Gibson, says that at one point he described the former president walking into the courtroom with swagger. He stared down Alvin Bragg before he left that courtroom. He verbally pleaded not guilty to all 34 counts. There were two big motions that happened inside that courtroom. One was about timing. The other was about a potential gag order. The prosecution bringing up posts on Truth Social that the former president had posted that they believed could have incited violence, and they essentially asked or requested this judge to issue a gag order. At least they implied that they wanted one. And in that case, Judge Juan Merchan said that he was going to request that Trump not further post things that could incite violence, and that if he were, then that they would revisit that request. And the second big thing that happened inside there was about timing. The prosecution asking for this case to be pushed all the way to January, which would be right at the heart and the start of the Republican primary election season. The defense wanted this case to be pushed back even further. They found that this case, the next hearing will now be December 4th, and that former President Trump must be here in person. The defense argued, why should the former president be here in person? You can understand the undue burden that has put on the city of New York. That argument rang on deaf ears, and Judge Juan Merchan said the former president needs to be here December 4th for the next hearing. Jesse, guys.
Ryan, thanks so much. Judge Janine Pirro, you spent some time in the courtroom. How do you see things developing today?
Well, I'll start with the last thing that was just said, and that is that the defendant needs to be present on, I believe it was December 4th, if I have the date right.
It's a Monday.
That is ridiculous, because it is only a hearing to submit motions or to get a decision on motions. Okay, it is ministerial. It's where the prosecutor, the judge, and the defense attorney get together, and there is either a decision issued on the motion, or there is the discussion that they'll argue the motions. But the overall response that I have to all of this is it's less significant than I thought it would be in the first place. This is a whole lot of nothing. And, you know, defense attorneys have done that in every case I ever tried as a prosecutor, and I never thought I'd do it to an indictment myself. First of all, the indictment is insufficient on its face. What that means is that the prosecutor does not allege what the other crime is. So he's saying he falsified records with intent to commit another crime. We don't know what the other crime is, and even Alvin Bragg, when he was asked about it, said, well, we had evidence this time that they didn't have last time as it related to why now. But in addition to that, we've got election law, and we've got text messages and emails. What are you talking about? Why not identify the crime that is giving you the ability to take a dead misdemeanor and give it new life, like a phoenix rising out of the sand? Now, if anyone looks at this indictment, they will realize also that in addition to being insufficient on its face, it is duplicitous. And what that means is they've got, if you look at the first 4 counts, they all occurred on February 14th of 2017. That means you've got the same course of conduct, they're just looking at it differently. Okay, so nobody get excited about the 34 counts, they're meaningless. And there will also be a bill of particulars. In the bill of particulars, which is required to be submitted in New York State within 15 days, it may be extended to 35 if the judge wants to give the DA a break. They've got to be real clear on what the bill of particulars says, because the defendant has the right to prepare for trial. And this is garbage. You don't have a right to prepare, or you don't know what to prepare for on this. And by the way, you know, the whole concept that Bragg gets up and he talks about, you know, this is New York, we're we are the center of the financial world and all that hogwash. Doesn't explain why he takes every felony he can find, 50% at the bare minimum, and turns it into misdemeanors, but wants this misdemeanor to be a felony. And why did the defense have to come back? Why does why does Donald Trump have to come back in December when it's going to cost New York City millions of dollars? And any prosecutor would consider the cost to the city or the county in deciding whether or not the appearance of the defendant is necessary. And I mean, I could go on, but...
Well, should we hear from the other lawyer at the table? We got one sitting right here. Would you like to say anything about what the judge just asserted?
So this is a tough day. I think anytime, and I watched the president's face as he left Trump Tower, and I watched him as the pictures that we saw, or just say the live picture of him walking into the courtroom, and then the picture that they took in the courtroom of him 2 or 3 times. And it's the first time I'd ever seen, I don't know the president that well, I know him personally, but I'd never seen him look that way. It was obvious the weight of the moment. It was serious for him. So you look at him and the humanity of the situation certainly screams at you, whether you like his politics or not. You cannot help but understand what that picture connoted. 2, I agree with the judge. New York law, as the judge knows, does not require, if you cite a federal law, for you to actually, if you say a federal law was broken, you don't have to cite it. However, D.A. Bragg should have cited what the federal law is. He's playing it by the book here, and I think, but in light of the fact this is the former president of the United States, this is a matter that on the face we know that we believe the Southern District of New York, the U.S. Attorney's Office passed on some of this. The former DA, Cy Vance, his office passed on some of this. So I think the burden, whether it's fair or not, was higher on the district attorney to lay some of these things out. Now, as you read the indictment, it reads like a daytime soap opera in so many ways. The things that and we knew a lot of these things from 2016, and voters were aware of some of the allegations from some of the women that are talked about, the 2 women that are talked about in this, and we all know what Michael Cohen did. I think the question now, I think for the president and his legal team, is how quickly do they want to go forward with this? Meaning, they will file the requisite motions to dismiss. It'll be interesting to see how the judge reacts. I'm going to assume his lawyers are going to lay out that these matters were passed on by 2 other legal offices, including the U.S. Attorney's Office. I'll be curious to see how this judge handles it. One thing I do hope we all are able to accept is that our judicial system works. And this judge here will have an opportunity to weigh all of these facts, to weigh the motions, which I assume will come, that Mr. Trump's attorneys have not consulted with me, but I assume that they're going to file these motions. And I expect this judge, who seems to want to move quickly, December 4th didn't seem quick enough to me, but I would assume that former President Trump would want it to move quickly. And I would assume the judge, you take him at his word that he wants to consider all these motions quickly. On a personal level, I was expecting a little more, Jesse.
Okay, I'm going to stop it right there. It's meaningless at this point in time. Judge Janine, who was a prosecutor and a DA herself prior to her retirement and going into work for Fox News, it's trash. As she said, it was frivolous. She threw the paper across her desk. That's how meaningless it is. It's trash, okay? The district attorney did not put out anything. He didn't make mention of any laws that were specifically broken. Oh, he's done this and he's done that. Really? Really? You're going to convict me or trying to indict me just because you think I need to be indicted? That's unreal. What did he present to the grand jury? That's the other issue. What did he present? Why did they indict him? Bragg must have done a good job of trashing him. That's all I can say about that. It's insane. Anyway, guys, I have a lot more I want to talk about besides that. I know I got carried away with this. It's all garbage. One of the things I wanted to talk about tonight is something that Demon Catman put out to me in an email the other day. I want to show you some pictures. The first one is that spider, that seismograph that sits on top of the dome of Mount St. Helens, the great big huge lava rock. the plug of the volcano. This is that same seismograph you see here. Spindly legs as a spider. Okay, that's one. Next picture he sent me is of the entire dome area. Okay, you can see SO2 and CO2 gas being emitted from the volcano. Okay, we talk about this all the time. Okay, gas being emitted from the volcano. What is it? Water vapor and SO2 gas. SO2 comes from magma beneath the surface. Okay, 6 to 7% of all magma is water. As there are holes in the dome, in the lava dome, in the plug of the volcano, fissures develop. As that magma comes up from underneath the volcano, inside the volcano, it's hammering away on that plug, isn't it? Hammering away on it. And as it hammers away on that plug, tiny fissures develop in the plug. Just like we saw with earthquakes. Fissures develop all over the place. The same thing goes for magma. Fissures develop in that lava plug at the top of the volcano, and all of a sudden we have steam that comes from that plug. That's what you're seeing here. Okay? Steam coming from inside the volcano. Okay, I want to show you this because this is very cool. It's very interesting. We talked about Mount St. Helens a lot. Okay? Next, this is again a close-up of the spider, the seismograph that sits on top of that lava plug. Off to the background on this, you see a small building. There's a repeater. Okay? There's instrumentation inside that building that are being protected. It's being protected so it can send out the signal out to the USGS monitoring station. You see that dome up on top of the roof of this building. Okay? That is a microwave dome that sends signals out to the USGS Pacific Northwest Seismic Network monitoring stations. Okay? That's how they do it. Okay? That's exactly how they do it. Up on top of this seismograph, on legs here, you see a radar dome. This is how they pinpoint the location of that particular seismograph. Okay? The next picture is going to be very telling also. Look what we have here. Okay? Solar panels that power the seismograph. Solar panels that power the seismograph. This is how they do it. Okay? One of the other pictures here, I forgot which one it was, right here. In the background, you see a helicopter. Each one of these seismic sensors is helicoptered into the volcano. They have scientists inside the helicopter that monitor the network. They know which seismographs to take a look at that may be awkward or have fallen down. We told you before that the September lobe seismogram, seismogram is a paper, seismograph is a machine. This machine gets tipped over by vibrations at the top of the volcano. When that magma is hammering against that rock, that huge lava plug, there's vibrations and it will tip over the seismograph. And they have to either write the seismograph or replace it. They helicopter all these seismographs in every time they replace one. Okay? The scientists come up and check it every once in a while. Now, with that said, we were told last year, I believe it was last October, that Glacier Peak, which is up in northwest Washington, it has one seismograph right now. They're supposed to be getting an additional 5 seismographs on that volcano. They still haven't put them up. They were waiting for an environmental assessment. to be done. There are a bunch of environmentalists that say if there are any more seismographs put up on Glacier Peak, it might disturb the marmots that live on Glacier Peak. Okay? Like I said, scientists have to come up and put these things into action, have to hook them up. Okay? Every time they place a seismograph, they have to hook it up. Okay? This is how they do it. Yes, the marmots might get excited. The marmots might not understand what a helicopter is. I'm sure they've seen helicopters flying over every one of the mountains in Washington. Okay? They might not like being around humans. Humans aren't going to be there but a couple days, maybe. Humans come in on helicopter and they leave on helicopter. But you can see this mountain steaming. It's always steaming, guys. It's always steaming. Now, with that said, there's more here than what I have to show you here. Okay? I'm going to start off this meeting tonight talking about the Pacific Northwest, the Cascadia volcanoes. Okay? Why is this important? Because we are looking for a very, very powerful earthquake. A very, very powerful earthquake that's going to hit the Cascadia area, offshore, over off the coast of Seattle-Tacoma area, okay, off on the Juan de Fuca Fault. The Cascadia subduction zone in the Juan de Fuca Fault. We've talked about this before. Prior to that happening, we've come up with data that suggests that a volcano or two may erupt just prior to the Cascadia megathrust earthquake going on. Okay? We've already had Mount St. Helens erupt back in 2004. Before that, it was 1980. Okay? So 14 years. 14 years and there was a second eruption of Mount St. Helens. In a few minutes, I'm going to show you some interesting data that I have on Southern California and earthquakes. Okay? They can be related to volcanoes too. Okay? But I'm going to show you some data here. Okay? This is Schucksen. This is a ski resort at Mount Baker, which is just south of the Canadian border in Washington State. It's a volcano. It's also steaming, just like I showed you the pictures of Mount St. Helens. It's steaming. A lot more steam than you saw here from the Mount St. Helens slide there. Okay? But this particular seismogram here is very telling of what's going on at Mount Baker. Okay? Let me enlarge this for you. You see these wavy lines here? Those wavy lines are magma. Magma sends out these VLF waves, very low frequency waves. These waves here represent the magma that's coming into Mount Baker here. Okay? The more VLF waves, the more magma that's coming into the volcano. You can see this particular seismogram. It shows this seismogram as having been active and first started at about 4 p.m. yesterday afternoon. Okay? There was a bunch of magma that's coming into the magma chamber. Okay? Then it calmed down for several hours. Then, at approximately 6 a.m., it started all over again. More and more magma. Then it calmed down a little bit for about an hour or so, and then it kicked up again. Okay? You can see this here. Okay? Then after that, you can see a blue line here. Okay? This blue line is magma that's coming into the magma chamber, and you can see these signatures here, seismic signatures of tremors that are hitting during that time period because of magma infill coming into the volcano. Magma coming into the volcano is under pressure, and that pressure fractures the rock, causing earth movement, earthquakes. That's what you see here. You see some tremors here. You also see two earthquakes, full-blown earthquakes. The first one there is excuse me, this afternoon. The first one is like a 3.0 here. The second one you can see that hit just before that one did, over here in the center left here, that was probably a 2.8, 2.9. But that first one was at least a 3.0, 3.4 earthquake. This is at Mount Shuksan, Mount Baker, Shuksan Ski Resort. Okay, you can see what happened. Then this afternoon, right before I pulled this seismogram, you see a lot more magma here again, don't you? Okay, a lot of magma movement. Now, I pulled all the seismograms I could find. There is no seismogram that shows anything going on at Mount Baker. This is the only seismogram that shows it. Okay? The other seismograms should show the thicker lines showing more and more magma coming into the magma chamber. These lines are every 15 minutes. Okay? The other seismogram should show all this seismic energy happening and the magma coming into the volcano, but it doesn't. They're blank. That means the agency blanked everything out. They don't want anybody to know what's going on. That's why we have to go deeper and find information like this that backs up our claim that the other seismograms don't show squat, because they have cleansed the seismogram. The main seismograms coming from Mount Baker are labeled MBW, and under MBW that's Mount Baker, but the main seismogram doesn't show squat. Nothing. Like nothing's going on. This says that something's going on. You have to dig deeper into the data at Mount Baker. Okay? So enough said about that. Let me show you another one here in Washington as well. I'm going to go through these fairly quickly. Okay? I'm going to go down. I was going to show you Glacier Peak, but Glacier Peak doesn't show anything. The one seismograph that they've got going there, they cleanse the seismogram so it doesn't show squat. It's so bad, so bad. I'm going to show you a seismogram from Mount Rainier here. I'm going to go south. I'm going to show you Camp Muir. Mount Rainier, Camp Muir. These seismograms come from the USGS. Okay? Again, the Pacific Northwest Seismic Network seismograms don't show anything. They have been cleansed. Okay? Looking at this, okay? This particular seismogram came out at 10 p.m. last night. There's 2 hours here between 10 p.m. and midnight here. Before midnight this morning, okay, we had an earthquake up here on the far right. Okay? If this was to hold true, that this seismogram right here was honest about how strong this earthquake was, this would probably be a 2.4, 2.5 magnitude quake. Okay? But this seismograph has been turned way down. The machine was turned down to less than half. Okay? So if we multiply this times 2, then you could see that this earthquake was probably closer to a 3.5, 3.8. Okay? So that's a substantial earthquake at Mount Rainier. Then this other one over here on the left center here. Okay, that appears to be maybe a 2.0 earthquake. Maybe 1.8 tremor, 2.0 earthquake. But the problem I have with it being a tremor is that the seismic energy that goes off to the right of the main quake lasts an entire minute. Tremors don't do that. So this also was a larger quake. Okay? Then we go down here to the left. All the other marks here are, if there's a vertical line here with a dot in the middle of it, that's an earthquake or tremor. If it's just a vertical line with nothing else, that is steam, a steam signature, steam being emitted from the volcano. Like I said, this is Mount Rainier. Over on the left-hand side, early this morning, okay, you can see an earthquake that happened. Okay? See that earthquake that happened? If we just look at this, it's a 2.0 earthquake. But it might have been larger than that. Might have been larger. Look at all the activity at Mount Rainier. This is just Camp Muir. Look at all these tremors. Okay? We don't see any thick magma lines, do we? Each line here represents a 15-minute time period. Each horizontal line is a 15-minute time period. Okay? But you don't see any thick lines here, do you? They don't want you to see that. That's one of the reasons they turn these seismographs way down. You can see these earthquakes. The earthquakes were powerful enough to come through the electronic turndown of the machine. Okay? There's quite a few earthquakes and probably 100 tremors here at Mount Rainier. Okay? This is just Camp Muir. Okay? I love this. I get the biggest charge out of it. Camp Sherman, the same thing. Look at this. Camp Sherman. We see a lot of magma. We see a lot of tremors and earthquakes hitting here. Now, right here, okay, right here in the center right of your screen, this particular slide, this is Camp Sherman. Right here in the light blue, okay, a sideways rectangle. This is a magma churn signal. A magma churn signal. These churn signals typically are 23 to 24 lines high. Let's count this and see just how strong this magma churn signal is. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 7.5 lines. Okay? It's probably 26% of real world, meaning the seismograph has been turned down about 75%. 75%. So any of these lines here that you see as earthquakes or tremors, multiply that times 3, and you'll have probably a pretty good idea of how strong these earthquakes were. Okay, and you can see one here over in the near center here, near the bottom here. Okay, this happened at I don't know why it says 2145. It hasn't even gotten to 2145 in the Pacific time zone. But that earthquake, that's probably a 3.0. Okay? But these individual horizontal lines should be showing a lot of magma coming into the magma chamber, and we don't see that. Okay? But we're certainly seeing a lot of steam. We're also certainly seeing a bunch of tremors here as well. Yes, we have some minor earthquakes. 2.0, 2.9 is a minor earthquake. 3.0, 3.9 is considered a small earthquake. I don't see any major earthquakes or even large earthquakes here on this particular seismograph. Okay? We just don't see that at this time. All right. Let's go down to Mount St. Helens. No, before we go to St. Helens, I want to show you something else about Mount Rainier. Okay, I want to show you the spectrogram. The spectrogram. This spectrogram is a device that helps us ascertain about the magma beneath the surface. The melt, as they say, the melt. You see vertical lines here. That is heat coming from the melt inside the volcano. Heat that reaches up to the surface. Okay? That's what it's showing. A lot of times you can see it over on the bottom left here. You can see some melt, very hot melt here at the very bottom on the left hand side. Sometimes the entire bottom of the spectrogram is showing a ton of melt. Very hot melt. Okay? This was melt, or this spectrogram showed 10 minutes of melt just prior to me pulling this information for you, and that was about 4:30 this afternoon. Okay? So you can see what's going on. This is at Mount Rainier. Hold on a second. Okay. Let me reduce this in size. Let me pull up the next seismogram. I'm moving south to Mount St. Helens. Good old St. Helens. St. Helens, guys, is a very active volcano. A very active volcano. Look what I have to show you here. Okay? Now I pulled the entire seismogram here. Up at the top, again, this seismogram starts at 8 p.m. or 10 p.m. last night. 2200 hours, 10 p.m. last night. Notice that just after, just before 2245, which is 1045, they shut down the seismograph. They shut it down and did not turn it back on until about 1:15 this morning. 01:15 this morning. Okay? When they turned it back on, you can see a blip, an electronic signature going upwards. This is the turn on signal. The one down here, the signal goes down that's saying this seismograph has been turned off. This one going up is a seismograph being turned on. Okay? You can see what happened. It immediately starts seeing magma. These thicker lines of magma coming into the magma chamber. Okay? Now again we see a magma churn signal. That sideways rectangle. And off to the right hand side are vertical lines. That is a steam signature. Superheated magma and a steam signature off to the right. Again, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 lines high. Just maybe 26%, 25% real world. That's how we tell whether the seismograph has been turned down and how far. You see some magma coming into this volcano right here. Okay? It started just before 7:15 this morning. And it continued until after, I want to say after 9 a.m. this morning. It started simmering down, less and less magma, and then the line settled down completely. Okay? Now sometimes these seismologists turn these things down and don't turn them back up. And the lines don't get any thicker. They just register some blips as seismic energy is kicking up rock fracturing, causing earthquakes or tremors. Sometimes it's powerful enough to kick the seismograph up and say, hey, there's an event here. But if the seismograph isn't turned up far enough, it's only going to show you just a blip. And that's what we see here. Okay? Then all of a sudden, we start seeing some more earthquakes. Magma coming into the magma chamber here. Okay? This is this afternoon. Look at these big huge blips here, or blobs. You can see the vertical lines going through them. That is earthquakes. Though I should say that. Those things are earthquakes. Okay? Coming through the signal. Those are earthquakes. Anytime you see a line going through a blob or just a regular line of magma, that is either tremors or earthquakes caused by the magma fracturing the rock inside the volcano. And it causes uplift in the volcano. Okay? And then down here at the bottom we see another magma churn signal, still 7 lines high. And the right out to the right, it shows the steam signatures. So you can see what's going on here. Okay? Now, I want to show you that because it would show you when the seismologists turn down these machines. Okay? A lot of people on this channel don't know it because they haven't followed us that closely. I'm showing you what is going on at the volcanoes. Okay? This is what's going on in the volcanoes. Now, with Mount St. Helens, okay, what did I show you? What did I show you with Mount St. Helens? I showed you that seismograph, didn't I? On spindly legs. It's called September lobe. That particular seismograph is called SCP, September lobe. Okay? This is the seismogram showing what is going on at Mount St. Helens. Look at all this activity here. The top of this is yesterday afternoon going into early this morning. That's a heck of a lot of magma. And there, folks, this is not being seen on the other seismographs. It's not showing anything. That means they completely erased or cleansed the seismogram. This proves the activity was there. It calmed down a little bit just before 4 a.m. this morning. Then it kicked higher into gear after 7 a.m. this morning. Okay, you can see that. Then it calms down just before, well, just about 11:30 this morning. It calms down again. Okay, now, what do you see here on this bottom of this seismograph? You just see horizontal lines, don't you? The cotton-picking seismologists turn the seismograph almost off. All you see is lines. That's it. That's it. There's hardly any other events being shown here. There is a small, either it's a tremor or it's a steam signal down here at the bottom in the center here. Just a little tiny, maybe 1/8 of an inch vertical line there. I can't tell whether it's got a dot in the middle of it, which would deem it a tremor, or if it's just a regular vertical line. If it's just regular vertical line, that's a steam signature. If the vertical line has a dot in it, that means it's a tremor or an earthquake. Okay? But what pisses me off the most is when they turn the machine off or so far down where it's not recording anything. That's what they did in this case. Heaven forbid they show the magma coming into the magma chamber, or shows us earthquakes happening. But this is what's going on here. This is exactly what's going on here. Okay, let's leave Mount St. Helens. Let's go further south into Oregon. I want to show you this because this is Mount Hood. This is Mount Hood right here. These seismograms come from the USGS. United States Geological Survey. The seismograms coming from Pacific Northwest Seismic Network were trash. They've been completely cleansed. Hardly any good information at all. Okay? At least here we're getting some information about what's going on at Mount Hood. This is Timberline. Okay? Up here at the top, this is early this morning. You see some very small activity here this morning. Maybe a 2.0 earthquake down here on the left center here. That's just about all. Okay? The rest of it, this seismogram is just showing very thin lines of magma. Okay? This thing's been turned way down. It didn't, the magma did not put out a magma churn signal because it's hot, but it's not that superheated. But we're not seeing any magma churn signal that tells us how far it was turned down. But we're also not seeing thick magma lines. The horizontal lines are not that thick. They're showing some thickness. Okay? That's called a magma pulse signal. A magma pulse signal, where it starts off thin, gets thicker, and gets thinner again, gets thicker again. Those are called magma pulse signals. You can see some of that happening here. But the lines are so thin, it shows that this seismograph was turned way down. Anytime the lines get thicker here, where you see some tremors in here, it's because the magma was of such a state that it's making its way through the electronic turndown. There was enough strength here that it made its way through the electronic turndown and was still registered here on the seismograms. Okay? That's what's happening here. Good old Mount Hood. Okay? Mount Hood. About a year and a half ago, Mount Hood was going crazy one Sunday. There was a ton of seismic activity going on. Over 125 earthquakes in a 24-hour period on the southern end of Mount Hood, the southern flank. USGS raised the possibility of a eruption at Mount Hood because of all the seismic activity that was going on. Now, after that, it settled down and nearly stopped. Still, it has some activity, but it's not such as would be indicative of a volcano that's going to erupt. This is not happening right now. It's just not happening. Okay? Now, I want to show you something else here. Gosh. Okay. There's one volcano that is important here. They're all important, but there's one specific seismogram that I want to show you. This is Sisters Volcano. Sisters Volcano. Look at the activity here. This is very, very important. This is very important, guys. This activity shows what is going on at Sisters Volcano. Why are we so enthralled with Sisters Volcano? Because, folks, guess what USGS did? They have issued an earthquake eruption advisory at Sisters Volcano. Okay? They have issued an earthquake eruption advisory at Sisters Volcano. Why did they do that? Why do you think they did that? What happened there that they felt a need to issue an eruption advisory at Sisters Volcano. Why do you think? Because there was a magma intrusion into the volcano, and they monitored it. They knew exactly what was going on. Okay? Now, up at the top of this happened late last night. This seismic information that you're seeing happened late last night. Then they turned the seismograph down, so it's hardly showing anything. Then this afternoon, guess what happens? The seismicity overcomes the electronic turn down here. Look what we're seeing here. More and more activity at Sisters Volcano. Okay, this is Central Oregon, south of Mount Hood. Now, I've got something I want to show you. Let me show you here. I'm trying to bring it up now. I should have had this all set up before I actually came on the air today. I want to show you this. Wait till you see what I have to show you. Some of you may have already seen this, but I want to make sure you see it again.
With the composition of the magma actively intruding underneath the...
Hold on a second.
There is some news regarding the Three Sisters volcano in Oregon, as we now know where the composition of the magma actively intruding underneath the complex is. Before I say why this development is important, I will explain the ongoing situation at the Three Sisters volcano. On January 31st, 2022, the U.S. Geological Survey issued a special statement which reported that the Three Sisters volcano was showing minor signs of unrest due to a magmatic intrusion at a depth of approximately 6 kilometers or 4 miles. It is now nearly 14 months later, and this magmatic intrusion is still ongoing, slowly creeping into the crust, thus displacing rock above it and uplifting overlying rock, creating a sort of bulge visible to scientific equipment. Alongside this uplift, which has totaled approximately 2 inches from November of 2021 to March of 2023, occasional low-magnitude earthquakes have also occurred. Further proving that magma is present at depth is the fact that elevated levels of chloride have been found in streams and springs close to the uplift center, whereas background levels of 0.2 to 0.5 milligrams per liter would be expected, values of 0.6 to 18.6 milligrams per liter were detected. This magma intrusion has been ongoing since at least 1995, although this date merely details when it was first detected, as it may have been ongoing at a low intensity for more than a decade beforehand. This intrusion has peaked and waned in intensity over time, but has remained largely constant and even produced at least one true earthquake storm in 2004. The Three Sisters volcano consists of 3 separate stratovolcanoes and a north-to-south line, in addition to flank cinder cones and lava domes. This volcano is still technically active, although it has not erupted for between 1200 years and 2000 years according to different sources. Here is a quick overview of the eruptions it produced during the last 10,000 years, showing eruption vents and lava flows, but you might note that the summits of the 3 stratovolcanoes all did not erupt during this time. The moderately explosive eruptions produced cinder cones and runny lava flows which traveled up to 7.1 miles distant during this time, while viscous rhyolite lava flows created highly explosive eruptions where individual lava flows traveled only up to 1.4 miles distant from a source vent. Yet, in addition to basalt and rhyolite, the 3 stratovolcanoes are composed of andesite and dacite. Although this is not always the case, generally speaking, the more silica-rich lava involved in an eruption is, the more explosive that eruption will be. Thus, knowing what type of magma is intruding underneath the Three Sisters volcano can help determine what a future eruption might look like. Therefore, a rhyolite or dacite intrusion would be more potentially concerning in the long term than a basalt intrusion. Well, the good news is that the ongoing magmatic intrusion is with a high certainty basaltic in composition. This means that if an eventual eruption was to occur due to this intrusion, a new cinder cone vent would be expected to form above the uplift center, and while this process of forming the cone would produce moderate amounts of ash, it would also produce tall lava fountains and a several mile-long lava flow which would probably travel into a valley to the west-southwest. We can assume that the intrusion is basaltic for two reasons. For one, the inflation west of the South Sister stratovolcano has seen only minimal seismic activity, which once again suggests a fairly hot heat source. Since rhyolite generally is 850 degrees Celsius and basalt is generally around 1200 degrees Celsius, basalt seems more likely. And, according to the US Geological Survey, the depth of the intrusion on its own suggests that it is basalt. I want to note that the Three Sisters volcano is still at an alert level of green, as although a magmatic intrusion is ongoing as it has been for 28 years straight, an eruption in my opinion does not appear likely anytime soon at the Three Sisters complex. My reasoning is that in comparison to other volcanoes showing signs of unrest, the unrest at the Three Sisters, in my opinion, would be considered fairly weak, and the associated magmatic intrusion probably will not reach the surface in the next decade. As a final note, here is a general hazard map of the Three Sisters volcano made by the US Geological Survey, which displays the expected radius select but not all volcanic hazards could reach if a volcanic eruption were to occur. Thanks for watching.
Okay, so that gives you all the data on the Three Sisters volcano. Okay, I wanted to make sure I played that for you because there are quite a few people that wrote me, and also I've been monitoring the messages on Messenger in our Messenger groups, and people had questions about it, and I wanted to make sure that everybody had the latest lowdown on what was going on. Since we talk about this continuously, this is important information. Okay? Anyway, there's that. Okay? Now, I want to also talk about another few volcanoes. Okay? I want to talk to you about another few volcanoes. Why? What is so important about these volcanoes? Okay? What do you think is important? Okay? Number one, the volcanoes I wanted to talk about are over at Lassen and Mount Shasta in Northern California. Lassen and Mount Shasta are also part of the Cascade Range of volcanoes. Okay? But guess what? Good old USGS doesn't want us to know what's going on. There are no seismograms available for Mount Lassen. None. Zero zilch. Okay? They've made sure they're not available. It's crazy. But look what I have to show you here. This is Mount Shasta. Okay, last week at this time, we were not able to show you much of anything going on at any of these volcanoes at all. This is the only seismogram that we have. Up at the top here, let's take a look at this. Again, this happened at 1500 hours yesterday afternoon, 3 p.m. You can see the magma pulse signals, where the line is thin and gets thicker and gets thinner again. Magma pulse signals. The thicker the lines, the more magma that's pouring into the volcano. Okay? Now, some of the lines are fairly thick and they stay that way. Okay? But again, this seismogram has been turned way, way down. So you don't see many thick lines at all. Occasionally you'll see an earthquake like this over here on the center right. Okay? Just to view it, we would say it's maybe a 1.8 tremor. It's probably a 2.5, 3.0 earthquake, considering how far they've turned down this seismogram. Okay? But again, it doesn't show you much of anything because the seismograph has been turned so far down, it's not showing much activity at all. Yet, Mount Shasta and Mount Lassen are very active. It's not unusual to see a lot of activity at these volcanoes because the other volcanoes are doing the same thing. but they turn them down so it doesn't seem like there's anything going on. And in this case, the Shasta and the Lassen volcano seismographs have been turned off. There's no reliable information coming from Mount Shasta or Mount Lassen. This is the only seismograph that I could pull up any activity on that shows anything. This one was at Mount Shasta. Mount Shasta and Mount Lassen each have 10 seismographs that are dedicated to those volcanoes. But we don't see much of anything going on, do we? Very little, if anything. That's sad. That's very sad. Okay? We want to make sure we keep an eye on these volcanoes in the Cascade Mountain Range. Okay? This is how we're going to keep track of what happens if one of the volcanoes were to erupt. And we know darn well from the scientific research that we've done is about a week or two before the Cascadia megathrust earthquake happens, there's going to be 1 or 2 volcanic eruptions at the volcanoes. Then we know when that happens that the Cascadia megathrust earthquake may be about a week, week and a half away. And you can really make solid preparations to get out of Dodge. But that is only one of the solid ideas that we have for watching what is happening in the Pacific Northwest. Okay? Now, I want to go south because I'm going to show you what is going on way down south in Southern California. This is the Imperial Valley that I'm talking about. Imperial Valley. I'm going to show you right now what is going on over at the Salton Sea. The Salton Sea. This is Bombay Beach. Look at the earthquakes that have occurred at Bombay Beach today. This is current as of today. Look at these earthquakes. This one in black is particularly disturbing. Okay? It covers 3 full minutes of activity. From the time the seismic energy starts prior to the main part of the earthquake. Okay? We have tremor activity, don't we? It builds up from 1.3, 1.4 activity, 1.5, 1.6, 1.8, and then it jumps. It jumps to probably over 3.0 magnitude earthquakes. The top and the bottom is cut off here. The top and the bottom of this earthquake signature has been cut off. Look at all those P waves. This is on the eastern side of the Salton Sea. You can see these other earthquakes as well. There's plenty of seismic information here to suggest that there's a problem here. There's a problem here. Okay? This is always going on. But it seems to me, especially with this earthquake at the top here that we're looking at, it seems to me that the seismicity has really increased here. The larger the earthquake, the more activity. Okay? Down here, this is on the southern side of the Salton Sea complex there. Okay, this is the Calipatria seismograph that recorded this. Look at this activity at the top. Look at the magma. Each horizontal line here is very thick. Does everybody see this? Does everybody see this? Look at these horizontal lines here. That's a lot of magma coming into the magma chamber here at the Salton Sea. Okay, look at the earthquakes and tremors hitting. Look at the vertical lines coming through the horizontal lines. The magma causing tremors and earthquakes here. The red lines are generated by the computer to let the seismologist know that, hey, this is important. Okay, that's what's going on here. The red lines are computer generated to get the attention of the seismologist. Okay, look at this. Look at all the tremors and earthquakes here. Folks, there's over 150 tremors and earthquakes. I attempted to count them, probably closer to 200. Isn't that something? Now tomorrow, I'm going to spend a great deal of time showing you what is going on in Southern California. I told you last week that we are very concerned with seismic activity in California. Very, very concerned. It's possible that we may be getting a very large earthquake in Southern California. San Diego, Los Angeles, even upwards into Northern California in San Francisco. I'm showing you this information so you can be prepared. That's why we're doing this. It's concerning, guys. We have 77 thumbs up. I was hoping we'd have over 100 by now. This is very important information. Everything we talked about tonight is important, including Mr. T's information too. Okay? That's important. And already Mr. T should have had a news conference start at 8 o'clock our Eastern time, and it's already 8:45. Folks, I want you to be able to go see that if he's still on the air, or at least you see the replays of it. Folks, everything we talked about is important. Okay? I showed you what's going on in the Cascadia subduction zone region. Okay? There are earthquakes that are hitting down in the South Pacific. We have a bunch of 5s and even 6s. A 6 hit yesterday over in Sumatra. Okay? In Sumatra. We've had some more 6s hit over in Papua New Guinea and Indonesia. We even had a 6.1 hit over in central Philippines, near one of the islands in the central Philippines. A 6.1 earthquake. Another 5.0 hit in northern South America in Chile today, northern Chile. That's pretty much normal. 100 plus earthquakes over in Turkey. They're going to get those aftershocks for probably years. That was a 9.0 magnitude earthquake that hit Turkey a few weeks back. A 9.0. A big deal. A big deal. We can expect that kind of earthquake to hit in the Cascadia subduction zone region. I'm fully expecting something to hit in Southern California, probably to the tune of a 6.0, 6.5 magnitude earthquake. So you've got the latest news as I have it. Okay? It's taken me a long time to put this information together today. If you have any questions, let me know. Write me. Write your questions down and bring them to our program tomorrow evening. We should be on the air no later than 6:30. Okay? That's my plan now. If anything else happens tonight, we'll be coming back on the air as soon as the information presents itself. Okay? Just as soon as we have the information, you're going to have it here with you. Okay? Does anybody have any questions about anything we've said tonight? I want to make sure I answer any questions. Okay? I want to make sure we answer questions here as well. Don Patoka, one of my mods here on this channel, says, naivety is not a virtue, but the evil of ignorance and omission. That's true. That's very true. I want to thank everybody that's been here tonight. Let me leave you with an idea, a thought, before we get out of here. This comes from 1 Corinthians chapter 7, verse 35. And this I speak for your own profit, not that I may cast a snare upon you, but for that which is comely, and that ye may attend upon the Lord without distraction. We need to get the Lord's assistance. We need to pray without distraction. Without distraction, guys. In this world of ours, we have a lot of distractions. If we seek the Lord's help in doing His will here on this earth, we need to pray to Him. We need to go to Him without distractions. We need to be uninterrupted. My best prayers are late at night and first thing in the morning. That's when I'm least distracted. I make sure I pray all the time. If there's a special need, I'll pray all the time during the day. And I've done that too. Folks, please, this is a time of the best season of the year. This is Easter. Easter. It represents new birth. It represents the resurrection of our Savior. Please, folks, please get closer to the Savior. You won't regret doing so. The Savior can bless your life. The Savior can bless your life. I appreciate everyone who's been here tonight. May you all have a great night and a better tomorrow. Like I said, if anything else happens, tonight we'll be back on the air to tell you about it as soon as the information becomes available. Until then, take it easy, enjoy yourselves, have fun, be safe. May God bless you. May God be with you till we meet again. Good night, everybody. Much love.